There's been a lot of talk about Palworld this week, and if you haven't heard about it, well, I envy you, but let me explain. Palworld is a monster hunting, crafting, base building, survival automation game that at the very least was heavily inspired by Pokemon, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Ark. And it's been taking the internet by storm. It's already sold over 5 million copies in the first week and established itself as one of the top games in Steam history. But like I mentioned, there's some drama here. There are essentially two groups on the internet fighting about AI, lazy game dev practices, theft, and more. So let's get into it. If you like it, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment below letting me know what you think about this issue or even this style of video. I know normally I stream things and then put them on the internet. I recorded this offline because I really wanted to think more deeply about it. In fact, this is my third time recording this video. As more evidence has come out and as maybe my opinion has changed, I wanted to make sure that you guys had the full story. So let's get to it. Now, one of the first things I noticed about this game is there are a lot of similarities to other hot games. And it's not like these are hidden. You have the obvious ones like, hey, you can't make a monster catching and taming game without being at least a little bit like Pokemon. This one you have a team of 5 pals instead of 6 Pokemon. But they still learn 4 moves that you can use in combat. They are trained and fight against other pals. Although in Palworld they can fight against humans and hold guns, some things that do make the game different. But you also have things like the world and sound design of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. This game, I think, is a bit of a parody of a lot of games. Like, this is a Sheikah slate, right? The towers are the key. Unlock fast travel, don't mind if I do. Is that the Breath of the Wild music? Did they just take it? No fucking way. And it's not just the sounds and the font. Some things that I'll admit are not Nintendo owned, like the stamina bar and the gliding, are things that I think we associate with Legend of Zelda and are stories that we talked about when Genshin Impact first came out. Is this just a Breath of the Wild clone? Why are we so excited about this game? Now, Genshin obviously evolved into something that was very different that people seem to be accepting of nowadays, but we're not sure if Palworld is going to do the same. You also have the meta progression through leveling that a game like Ark has. I have to admit, I have not played Ark myself, but I did see a lot of screenshots showing how the leveling works, unlocking new items, getting to the next tier so that you can continue on. I have leveled up to around level 25 in Palworld, and I can see these similarities. But all these things can be fine. For example, you can make a BR. One of the examples I used is that Apex Legends created the essential respawn mechanic in Battle Royales. It's something that you see in Call of Duty Warzone now, and it's something you see in Fortnite with the reboot fans. It's not something that Apex Legends owns, and it's something that pushes the genre forward. It's something that I don't think anyone is really mad about. Where the issue lies is if they go so far as to steal actual assets from these games. And there's no way that Palworld did that, right? Right? Now, even though the conversation has moved on since, I think it's important to start this story at the beginning. Or at least where it started with me when I started seeing these tweets. I saw a myriad of tweets calling out the developers of Palworld Pocket Pair for using AI to essentially create what they were calling shovelware in a game that no one should be looking at, let alone buying. And this opinion was taking over. Now, I'm someone that played Palworld on launch day on my stream because I'm an old Pokemon head and it looked like a fun game. And the most common question in my Twitch chat was, why are you playing this game? How could you play something that so blatantly uses AI art? Don't you support real artists? Which made sense to me because I'm a person who's pretty generally anti-AI just by nature of being a little older and more tech illiterate, not really understanding what's going on and hearing all these things about people losing their jobs. But here's the thing, when I dug into it, I had no idea what these people were talking about. You probably know Kantz, Mr. Deep Dive. He actually takes me through a lot of things on this channel. Well, he actually had a hit tweet about Palworld, echoing some of the sentiments that I also share, such as, where is this AI? And how could they have used generative AI to make this game if the trailer came out 3 years ago and a lot of the PAL's designs were in that trailer? Now, I don't want to say that there was no such thing as generative AI then, but to me, this feels like a situation where AI is something that is a hot button issue now, and if we say that a game like Palworld uses AI, it's very easy to pillory it, to lambast it, to say that you shouldn't play this game is bad, and by playing it, you are by proxy bad. But my understanding is that generative AI did not exist in the state it does now then, and that it would be impossible for the people at Pocket Pair to use it to design at least the earliest PALs. It turns out they weren't coming out of nowhere. The CEO of Pocket Pal is an AI bro. He is a person that really enjoys AI and believes it's the future of not only his industry, but potentially others. In fact, he's vocal about it. He's tweeted many times about AI, including things about how he thinks that copyright perception by the public is going to evolve over time because it is easy to use AI to generate new things, and that as that becomes more popular, there is no way we can keep the same archaic systems, I'm paraphrasing here, and that he expects GPT-4 powered games as early as later this year. So that's where it seems like it comes from. A lot of people, I would maybe put myself in this group, don't like AI, or are at least concerned about a future in which AI is doing a lot of the artistic design work in games. And I know personally, I find it concerning that it is very easy to steal an artist's work and put it in a training set to generate your own images. In fact, this is something that happened to many Twitch streamers, YouTube artists. It turned out that they were actually in some of the early training sets. This is something that Stable Diffusion did from the very beginning, although now you can opt out. At this point, tensions online were mounting, so I felt it was up to me to jump into the game and see that if AI is not the culprit, are there things that people can be mad about within Palworld? This is where it starts to get challenging. And I would be wrong if I didn't admit that when I started learning about this over the weekend, I think I was a little bit biased. As I mentioned, the whole start of this saga for me was accusations of AI art in Palworld. And when I looked and didn't see any AI art and still saw people arguing, it felt like a boy who cried wolf situation. I was primed to not believe any other accusations against Palworld because the first one, and what seemed to me the biggest one at the time, wasn't true. This was compounded by the fact that it seemed like a lot of the takes I was seeing on Twitter weren't actually good faith arguments. We weren't trying to get to the bottom of if this game stole or if it's okay to steal from Nintendo. We were dunking on anime avatars or defending one of our favorite games. It felt like more an opportunity to tell the other side they were wrong rather than championing that your side was right or that you have like a moral leg to stand on. And as I dug deeper, I saw a few things that made me take a second look. So I went to the Pocket Pair website and realized this wasn't their first rodeo. There was a lot of drama about Palworld, but I hadn't even seen their other games. And Nevergrave is just a ripoff of Hollow Knight, right? I mean, look at this game. Craftopia, while it looks like Palworld, was obviously inspired by Breath of the Wild. And lastly, they also have an Among Us AI art game. But this video isn't to talk about the developer in whole or those other games, we're talking about Palworld. So let's go back to Palworld and let's compare the pals in the game maybe to some Pokemon. Like for example, the pal Verdash and Cinderace. This is maybe the most prominent one. I think everyone has seen these photos side by side at this point. You have Cinderace, the fire soccer Pokemon, and you have Verdash, the grass pal. Now, Pokemon doesn't own anthropomorphic bunnies, but when we look at some of the actual flourishes on the model, it makes me think that at best, this was heavily inspired by Cinderace. When we look at things like, for example, the belt, or the fact that there are flourishes on the knee at the edge of the shorts, not to mention how similar the hand size, foot size, and things like that are. Unfortunately, for people who were solidly on the Pokemon side, this thread lost me when they made other comparisons that to me seemed in bad faith, like Pokemon owning almost any ferret based on the fact that they made Furret. I mean, this is a water ferret. I think there's no other way to do this. If you are going to make a ferret-styled Pokemon, pal, yokai monster, Beyblade, it's gonna look something like a Furret because Furret is just a ferret. I mean, it's a normal type. It doesn't have any distinguishing characteristics. So I wasn't sure where I stood. It all seems so confusing. Until we saw it. You see, last night, Kance and I spent about 2 hours in Discord arguing about pals, Pokemon, what was too similar, what wasn't similar, what could be a stolen mesh and what couldn't, when we realized that we were looking at different pictures of a pal. You see, Kance was adamant that Direhowl the pal was based on Lycanroc the Pokemon. And so I pulled up these two pictures. And I thought, you have to be crazy to think this is stolen. It would be hard to make a wolf that doesn't look like a wolf. And in fact, Lycanroc has some very obvious iconography that makes it specific to me, being the reverse mane, the eye color, the fur color, and such. But then he showed me what he was looking at. And he sent me a picture of Direhowl that looked like a very obvious recolor of Lycanroc. Now, I told him, buddy, I've been playing Palworld. I know what Dire Howl looks like, and he doesn't look anything like that. But he sent me where he got the photo, and it's the original trailer for Palworld. In fact, the original Dire Howl had those things that I said made Lycanroc iconic. The reverse mane, different coloring. And these seem like things that didn't just stem from a bout of inspiration as you're designing a wolf monster. It feels to me like you would have to have not only seen Lycanroc, but studied the most prominent monster catching game of all time, in fact, one of the biggest media franchises in all time, to start where they started. And if they did use Lycanroc as a jumping off point, which it seems to me they did, who's to say they didn't do that for other pals? On second look, maybe the PAL to Pokemon comparisons were closer than I thought. And while it is okay to draw inspiration from something, a Pikachu, a Marill, a Lycanroc, I don't think it is okay to completely rip that asset and just morph it. Or, in the case of the early Palworld trailer, just insert it in your game. Add to this the fact that real subject matter experts seem to be saying that it would be impossible for these meshes to be as similar if they weren't ripped directly from the game. This is something that I am not positing, but I am reading on the internet, and I start to feel a little worse. So with that said, with everything I've seen, here's where I stand. I don't think Palworld used an AI trained on Pokemon to design the pals in their game. And I don't think that every pal is just a converted Pokemon or Fakemon. But I do think a closer look is warranted at some of the more blatant ones, because if there's a chance that Palworld didn't just take inspiration from, but stole assets from Pokemon, I think that wouldn't be right. Not to mention the other similarities to Breath of the Wild music or UI elements, things that they could have just directly ripped. But the thing about that closer look is it needs to be taken by Nintendo. This is not something that we are going to solve on Twitter. I know, it's crazy. And Nintendo, as we know, is a notoriously litigious company. In fact, they sued my friend Ludwig. If there is even a tenuous thread connecting Palworld to Game Freak's Pokemon, I truly believe that they are going to go at them with their full legal might, and then we will get an answer. In the meantime, it's up to you where you lie on the issue. I don't think you're a bad person if you continue to play Palmon. I also don't think that people airing their concerns about Palworld are just jilted Pokemon fans. I think they brought up some very reasonable points that we should look at. The reason why this took off on the internet is because people care about these games. And in a time when so many companies like Twitch, Riot, Discord are laying off folks, and when we keep hearing about this specter of AI that has the chance to take away even more artistic jobs in an industry we love, I think it's important to take a closer look. And it's cool to make sure that you're comfortable with where your dollars are going. And if that is to Palworld or if that is abstaining from Palworld, that's up to you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.